Good day everyone, so the new 3.8 Abyss is here and we're going to be clearing it today with C0 units, mostly C0 units. The builds are towards the end of the video, but if you are just here for the quick TLDR, basically the new Abyss is much more reasonable than the previous Abyss iterations. The first half really favors your Nilou Bloom teams and the second half can be done with Hyper Bloom teams, but you don't need to run these teams. You can run any old variation, Freeze, Taser, Ride and National, all the good stuff. It's a much more fun Abyss to play, so do give it a try. As for what we're going to be doing today, I'm just going to sit back and really relax and talk about all sorts of random stuff. And even in the background, you'll see here that none of the gameplay is optimal or crazy. You'll see some pretty average gameplay. And once you see the builds, you also realize that they're pretty average builds as well. So nothing crazy here. And I think the point is that you can now really sit back, relax, and have a bit of fun. This is much like how the old Abyss cycles used to be. What I do find is that this first half is really geared towards Kokomi with the corrosion effect and obviously the pyro lecter here, so you can absolutely destroy him with the jellyfish. And if you now run Nilou Bloom teams, well, the combination of Nilou and Kokomi it's just so good. So you can see here within 1 minute we can clear it. That gives us enough time for the second half, and you can see on the second half I'm just running the old C0 Yae Tainari sort of variation. But in any case, so yeah, that is mostly what I wanted to say regarding this run. So let's just talk about some random topics while this plays out in the background. So the first thing that I want to sort of really talk about is this idea that a lot of people think that 4-star characters and 4-star weapons is somehow F2P. I see that this is a big sort of selling point from some YouTube content creators. They pride themselves in showing that I did it with 4 stars and 4-star weapons, but very often we forget that in order to clear the Abyss with 4-star units, they must all be, or most of them must be at Constellation 6. You have to have good talents, you have to have 4-star weapons with refinement rank 5, you have to have good artifacts, and most of the time those units are at least level 85 to 90. So this, in my opinion, is very different from saying something is F2P, because F2P itself has kind of lost meaning in Genshin. The difference between like a normal account or a person that's an F2P at AR 55 and a person that's an F2P at AR 60 is really massive. You can even have someone that spent money on the game that's now at AR 55 that is considerably weaker than an F2P player at AR 60. So generally speaking, when people put up this 4-star nonsense, it's as impressive as it is that someone put restrictions on themselves to clear the Abyss. As impressive as it might be, it is not really F2P. It's just one way of clearing these spiral bursts, just like the people that do speedruns and they absolutely demolish things. So there are people that at C0 build highly optimized units. They go over and they reset the Abyss as many times as they can, and basically what they try to do is to get an optimal sequence so that they can put it onto YouTube and obviously generate some ad revenue. Now, one of the interesting things for me about Genshin content creation in that respect is that on my channel, at least, I found it very interesting that regardless of whether I put C0 into the title or whether I put an F2P into the title, these kinds of videos generally don't perform as well as if I just said, oh, here is C6R5 units, or if I just don't make any mention of the fact. And in my perspective, one of the things that I found on my channel at least is that the engagement for these types of videos where you use C0 units is not that good. And my theory is basically that if you are someone that's talking about a lot of general things and you see a lot of action happening in the background, then typically that grabs your attention a lot more than having to sit through and see someone play for 7 to 9 minutes with C0 units. So if I'm running C6 units and I get the point across in 3 minutes, people can mostly understand that. They'll be prepared to watch for 3 minutes, but to watch for 8 minutes, that's already asking a lot for people. And I think that's the one fun thing about having very strong or an alt account with C6 units, is that I can create content very quickly, but I can also keep people a bit more engaged. Well, at least that is what I'm seeing in the data. Whether that's actually what's happening or whether there's something else that's happening, I'm not sure. But from my perspective, I do find it odd that there is this discrepancy between the C0 type of content and the C6 type of content, which is always kind of fun. But in any case, enough about that topic. So the other thing that I want to talk about is the expectations that we have going forward for Fontaine. So the interesting thing that we've now gotten into with Genshin is the fact that a lot of the game is quote unquote solved. So basically we're just looking at whether new units can spice up existing variations, and certainly if Fontaine keeps on delivering the same types of units, the game itself will really become stale. So one of the cool things that Dendro did is it introduced an entirely new combat mechanic. There was obviously lots of scope for theory crafting, and I think this gave a bit of life into the game. So hopefully Fontaine itself will introduce to us a bit more life, or like new enemies or new mechanics or new game modes, where we can sort of start really getting that creative spark back into the game. So this is the thing, once your game is full of mystery and everyone hasn't figured everything out, that's when you drive quite a lot of your engagement. We saw this with something like Honkai Star Rail, where everyone's like, but is this unit good, or is that unit good? Should you build this unit instead? But everyone thinks this character is good, but is this perhaps not the Bennett of Honkai Star Rail? You know how people are. Whenever there's mystery, intrigue, uncertainty, that's when you drive engagement, because that curiosity is something people want satisfied. So I hope that Fontaine can deliver this, either in terms of some new mechanics or in terms of giving us a variation of the current game modes that we have, or with new enemies, or with all three of them. I think that is what we need. So Genshin in of itself is such an awesome game, but it really suffers from, and like my eye suffers from hitting the target, it really suffers from hitting the target of keeping people engaged. And I think a lot of that is due to the dev team not really expanding on the core of the combat system. I feel like the combat system is ultimately what ties and brings everything together. So you've got all this overworld exploration, all this effort you put into building your characters, and then you're told, oh yeah, by the way, the latest thing that actually gets a balance update is this card game that's got nothing to do with your characters. And that's where I feel Genshin has lost the plot. I think that's also why people get quote unquote burned out. I don't think it's the exploration or the amount of dialogue people have to sit through, it's just the amount of engagement that the game can drive. It's just not there from a longevity perspective. From my perspective as well, I find that playing Honkai Impact can sometimes be a great distraction from the boredom that is in Genshin, so I do enjoy that at least. But in any case, yeah, so here we are getting towards the end of this video. You can see here I played here on this final floor very cautiously against the little bishops, trying to whittle down their enemy health very evenly so that we are guaranteed a victory. For those of you that might be interested, I actually reset this Abyss run only once and was on this floor because my Tainari died, which was not a good idea first time around, but second time around playing a bit more cautiously, and there we go, we still had enough time on the clock left, so that's pretty awesome. So let's just quickly get into the builds. As you can see here, here's my little Kirara. She is at Constellation 0, free craftable weapon, pretty ordinary artifacts, energy, HP, crit damage, whatever. C0, not enough in terms of a talents. Kokomi, you can see, is reasonably well built. My Kokomis are always reasonably well built and taken care of. EM, HP, and healings bonus, that's more than good enough for running her in the Nilou team. You can use the signature weapon, or you can use prototype Amber. I think that should be good enough. Here is my little Nilou, C0 Nilou with the R2 weapon. Like I said, I don't have an R5 for it. C0, ordinary talents. Here's the little Nahida. And as you can see, there's not really that much in terms of wow on this account. It's just the usual stuff. Some characters are better built than others. You've got a random 5-star weapon here, a constellation there, some good artifacts, some bad artifacts. This is what you'd expect after 3 years of playing. Yes, I've been playing on this account as well for 3 years. So this is just what you get. I don't think any of this is really that unreasonable. Genshin is definitely more a game of having time in the game that rewards you rather than your mechanical skill or any of these other things. Oh, and I also forgot about Fischl. So here you can see my little Fischl as well. She's C5, by the way, so that would also have made quite a bit of a difference in terms of your overall DPS. But in any case, let me know what you guys think of the Spiral Abyss, whether you've made it to listening to me all the way into this video, and have a great day. Thanks for watching.